안녕하세요. How are you guys doing today?
Hi.
Hi. Great, thank you.
Pachinko was truly an epic and inspirational series. Both of your characters are so captivating. Minha, you play the lead female role in this series. Can you please describe your character?
Um, well, I played as a teenage Sonja, and she has both sides of fragile and resilience moments, and it's about her stories, like about her life and how she overthrew the obstacles and how she deal with it and how she learned about love and have a responsibilities for family. And yeah, this whole series is about this whole personal humanity.
Your character is so powerful and strong in this series. Lee Min-ho, you're a South Korean superstar and continuing your legacy in Pachinko. Can you please tell me about your character?
네, 이민호 배우님이 이제 한국 한류의 슈퍼스타신데요. 한수라는 캐릭터에 대해서도 조금 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
한수는 어려서 한국을 떠나서 일본에서 이제 새롭게 적응하고 그 일본이라는 나라에서 자신의 잃어버린 이름과 그리고 그런 어떤 국적을 가지고 살아남게 되는 그런 역할을 맡았습니다.
So Hansu is born in Korea, but he's raised in Japan, and in that process, he kind of loses his Korean name and nationality, and he has to endure through a lot of difficulties in order to survive in Japan.
Both of you guys experienced this forbidden love. It seemed like it was love at first sight, then maybe took a turn for the worse. Minha, I love that the series highlights 4 generations of a Korean immigrant family. My family immigrated from Vietnam, and I understand the sacrifices they had to make to travel to another country for better opportunities. I'm curious to know how you prepared for your role and if your family background helped your on-screen performance at all.
Yes, it's about immigrants, but while I was preparing for my role, I tried to focus more on the personal events that what she's suffering and what kind of situations that she is confronting. So every time I reading novels or the scripts, I try to focus on the scenes and situations that she is confronting, and so naturally I have to concentrate on her emotions and the feelings and thought and how she process those kind of work. So yeah, while I was preparing, I truly asked a lot of things to my grandmother, and she is 94 years old, so she's obviously living that era. So she helped me a lot of things to figure out her Sanja's feelings in that era too. So yeah, while I was preparing this whole my personal family backgrounds and from novels, I tried to match the balance preparing it.
Your performance was incredible. I mean, in the production notes, it says you nailed your performance and your audition was so emotional and authentic. Minho, your character is so desirable but dangerous in this series. You're one of the biggest stars in Korea. How is playing Hansu different from all your other roles in the past?
네, 이민호 배우님 한수라는 캐릭터는 정말 매력적이지만 또 위험한 남자이기도 한데요. 그리고 또 이민호 배우님은 한국에서 엄청난 스타로서 다양한 역할들을 해오셨는데 지금까지의 역할들과 고한수라는 캐릭터가 다른 점이 어떤 점이 있을까요?
기존에 제가 해왔던 캐릭터들은 그래도 어떤 교감과 소통 이런 것들에 조금은 유의한 그런 캐릭터였던 것 같은데, 사실 이번 작품 같은 거에서는 이제 가장 큰 매력을 느꼈던 부분이 그런 부분인데, 어떤 교감과 소통을 할 수조차 생각조차 할 수 없었던 시대에 그런 느껴지는 감성들이 좋았기 때문에 그런 시대상의 사람들의 감성을 표현한다라는 게 가장 매력적이었고, 그리고 또 기존에 해왔던 캐릭터들과는 가장 크게 다른 점일 것 같습니다.
Yes, so the characters that I portrayed before, they were more flexible in emotional interactions and communications. But for Hansu, I thought to me, he was a charming character because he lived in an era where emotional interaction was something that people could not even think about. It was like a luxury for them. So I like that new vibe that it's something that I haven't portrayed before. And it was like a new male figure and a new kind of person. So that's what I liked about the character.
Your character is a powerful woman living in a male-dominated society. She endures so much pain, but is always extremely strong. Can you talk about some of the sacrifices your character makes in the film?
Um, well, yeah, she is obviously a really strong woman, but also she has a vulnerable moments in a lot of. She's not always so strong. Like she suffers so many things, and through that suffers, she gets stronger and stronger. So like during this process, she gets to sacrifice herself, and she get to sacrifice because of the society, because of the moods that are contained in that era. So like she had to sacrifice herself for the others all the time. All the decisions that she's making in this process was to just delete herself and sacrifice for the others, for their family mostly.
Minho, there's so much history in this epic film, and we see your character also face hardship with Japan colonizing Korea in 1910 and the tragic earthquake. How did you prepare for your role, and what was the filming production like for you?
네, 지금 이번 드라마에는 또 역사에 대한 언급이 굉장히 많이 나오는데요. 민호 배우님께서 연기하신 한수도 굉장히 많은 역경을 헤쳐나가는 인물입니다. 1910년에 일본의 침략에서부터 또 그 관동 대지진까지 일어나는데 어떻게 이 배역을 준비하셨고 또 그 연기하시는 과정이 어떠셨나요?
어쨌든 그 시대적인 배경을 이해하려면 조금의 역사적인 공부는 필요했고, 그래서 기존에 우리가 학습했던 역사들보다는 조금 더 그때 어떤 조금 더 우리가 모르는 어떤 일련의 사건들이 있었는지, 그리고 그 시대 때 사람들은 주로 어떤 식으로 그 생활을 꾸려나가고 생활의 방식을 이해하려고 조금 많이 노력을 했던 것 같고, 그리고 뭐였죠 또? 우선 여기까지 먼저 통역해 주세요.
네, 알겠습니다. So in order to really understand the historical backdrop of the show, I thought it was important that I also look deeper into the history of Korea because I thought that I had to go a little bit deeper than what we used to learn in schools and from textbooks. So I try to do that, and I try to understand the way of life of the people who are living in that era and how they try to make their living.
그러고 나서는 되게 상상하는 시간들을 많이 가졌던 것 같아요. 내가 이제 같은 상황이라면 또는 같은 상황에서 한수라면 이런 질문들을 끊임없이 저 스스로에게 계속 던졌던 것 같습니다.
And also, I used my imagination a lot. I try to put myself in the shoes of Hansu and thought to myself, if I were in that situation, what would I do? If I were in this situation, what would Hansu do? So I try to ask myself those questions and try to really use my imagination.
Minha, I want to talk about the costumes. It seems like each cultural piece had a symbolic meaning behind it. Can you please talk about the costume design and how it played an integral role as your character goes through life changes?
Yes, first of all, my wardrobe was beautiful, and like you said, like every season and like her costume changed over and over again, depends on the situation that she is on. So like it's really like a culture. It's not only about the clothes, it's about the culture, and it's about the language, and it's about my attitude. So it contains so many things in there. So like it really shows her personalities as well. So yeah, the wardrobe itself tells audience about Sanja as well too.
Thank you guys both so much for your time. Pachinko was absolutely amazing, and I'm so excited for everyone to watch it. And congratulations again. This series is phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank you.
How are you guys today?
Good.
Good. How are you?
Good.
God, you look great.
Thank you. So do you guys. I'm so excited to talk to you. This is Pachinko was absolutely amazing. It was truly an epic series, and I loved both of your characters. Jinha, you were in HBO's Love Life and performed as Aaron Burr in the musical Hamilton. Congratulations on your role in this series. What do you want people to know about Solomon?
I think I'll skirt that a little bit as people get to know him as they watch the show. But I hope that I hope when they meet Solomon, I hope they understand where he's coming from. I think they will. I think they will understand what motivates him and what drives him. But that's sort of my hope, because there is a lot of we recognize that sort of archetype, right? Like the banker, the very accomplished and somewhat stoic financier that is solely steeped in the world of economics, perhaps. But I think there's so much heart to this character, and we see that early on, obviously. But in that sense, I hope that the audience gets to parse out why he does what he does, why he makes the decisions that he does.
Your character played such an integral role in this series. Anna, you've starred in several Fast and Furious movies and now play Naomi in Pachinko. I love the dynamic between both of your characters. Can you describe the relationship between you two in the series?
Well, Naomi has been working at Shifley's for a couple years, and here comes Solomon from the New York office trying to seal this deal that no one's been able to make work.
You've been working on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she's really unhappy that he thinks that he can save the day, and she believes that he can't. But there's something about him that's, that just stands out. He's different from all the people that she's working with, and she's intrigued by that. And so I think it's kind of like a love-hate relationship that she has with him.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed your character. You played such a powerful female role. Jinha, the story of Pachinko is told in 3 different languages, Japanese, Korean, and American. I'm curious if you were already so talented and trilingual, or did you have to study each language to prepare for your role?
I did not speak Japanese. I did study Mandarin for several years in school, though, so Japanese was that one East Asian language I just missed. Yeah, I speak Korean with my family growing up, and I'd studied a bit English. But even my Korean, actually, I have a slight American accent when I speak Korean. So I worked with my coach Yumi to have a little bit of a Japanese accent with my Korean, because we in investigating it, we were like, oh, that would be the authentic. Actually, my coach Yumi Kang is Zainichi, and so her Korean was slightly accented in Japanese, and I used her pronunciations as sort of my model for Solomon's Korean. And then the Japanese, I was familiar with Japanese growing up. My father speaks it, my grandmother spoke it, but I hadn't learned it myself, and so it was an unbelievably challenging journey for me with my coach to not only just memorize the language, but also try to express, right? Try to be comfortable with it, try to be natural, try to act, so to speak, on top of it. And Yumi actually is also an actress. And so it was kind of this perfect relationship that we found of working through text from like a text analysis background, and then adding on to that, like, how would you have said this line if you were thinking this at this moment? And then I sort of took that and molded it into Solomon's words, or Solomon's mouth.
You did it absolutely flawlessly. So,
Thank you.
Anna, really quickly, I believe Pachinko highlights the different roles women and men play in society. Your character is a powerful businesswoman working in a male-dominated field. What's a message you'd like to give to hardworking women out there who are trying to break down gender barriers?
I think it's really important to know how far we've come, and this is, what my mom went through, and it's a time when women were kind of told that they were like Christmas cakes, where until 25 they're very desirable, but once you're over that, like you're not even on the shelf anymore.
Damn, Christmas cakes.
I know. It's so harsh, but it's an actual metaphor that they used. And so I would like women to know that you're not the only one feeling that way, obviously. And I'm still trying to find my voice. Naomi's trying to find her voice, and I hope that people can walk away with a little bit of power and hope for a better situation.
Well, I definitely felt empowered after seeing this and your role. And Pachinko just is so close to home as well. So Thank you guys so much again for your time. It was a complete pleasure to speak with both of you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for your time today. Pachinko was absolutely phenomenal and truly epic. You created and executive produced the series inspired by the New York Times bestselling novel. Can you please tell about what inspired you to create this series and the meaning behind Pachinko?
I mean, the book was so extraordinary, and then thinking about the book made me think so much about my own family, right? Made me think so much about my homeland, and made me think about who I am now and why I am here. And when just opening up all those windows felt exciting.
I love that the series highlights 4 generations of a Korean immigrant family. There's so much history and drama that unfolds over 70 plus years. Can you tell me about your research and preparation for Pachinko?
Yeah, with a show like this, covering the materials and the years, there was a lot of research. In addition to really diving into the firsthand accounts and history books, at this point, we worked with so many historians who were specialties in different regions, different subject matters. And I felt like the only way to do this series, which is it's a fictional work, right? But it's based on the real life experiences of people who actually lived during very tumultuous times, that in order to bring it to life, we really had to put ourselves in their shoes. We really had to figure out what did they see, what did they smell, what did they hear, and trying to bring that to life as much as possible.
Pachinko journeys between Korea, Japan, and America. The cinematography is truly captivating. What was the filming production like?
We shot half the show in Korea and the other half in Vancouver, and we did a plate shoot in Japan. Originally, we were supposed to shoot in all 3 countries, but due to the pandemic, we weren't able to shoot as much as we wanted in Japan. It was amazing. I mean, it was hard, but to be able to shoot half the show, right, in my birth home, and to work with this international crew, it was like unlike any experience I've ever had.
The production was absolutely incredible, and the cast is an all-star cast. Can you talk about the casting and how it was working with such a talented team?
Yeah, I mean, the casting is always one of my favorite parts. It's the part where you really do feel it feels like an all or nothing experience, right? If I don't find the best Sunja, if we don't find the best Hansu, if we don't find the best Youngjin, then all of a sudden it's all going to fall apart. It was a long casting process. For the main principals, it was about 6 months. There's so many different roles to cast. We cast all over the world, not only in Korea and Japan and America, but also Canada, Australia, England, and there were a few other cities as well. And we really searched far and wide for the best actors possible for these characters.
They all beautifully were portrayed on screen. And the culture is so also beautifully highlighted in the series between the food and the costumes, the traditions. Can you quickly discuss the details on all these aspects in the series?
We trying to bring this world and time period to life, we knew that as much authenticity had to be washed into this canvas as possible. I mean, just working with an amazing production team headed by Mara, our costume team headed by Kyunghwa, our hair and makeup team, Rebecca and Sana. And we also had, food historians, food consultants. We had food artists. We had, costume team that was specifically focused on the kimonos. Just what we said is, let's bring the experts in and have them guide us.
Thank you again so much for your time. It was so beautiful, and I am so excited for everyone to watch Pachinko. So
thank you so
again.
much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Pachinko was truly an epic and inspirational series. Teresa, you're one of the executive producers on the show. I love that the series highlights 4 generations of a Korean immigrant family. My family immigrated from Vietnam, and I understand the sacrifices they had to make to travel to another country for better opportunities. I believe these diverse stories are universal. Can you talk a little bit about your background and what inspired you to be part of this series?
Absolutely. My parents immigrated from South Korea, and I was born here. And my father owned a chain of video stores, and he had a huge international film section. And so I grew up around international filmmakers who, they were in my living room all the time. And I really love Korean cinema. But I was an agent and partner at a talent agency, WME, which is how I got to know Michael. And when the book came out 4 years ago, both of us had read it, loved it, and the key ingredient was finding a showrunner and writer in Soo Hugh who had this incredible vision for it. But the truth is, it is universal. This is a story about a family, and it's about the sacrifices that one generation makes for the next. And it's really about how we're all interconnected. And I think that whatever background you come from, that is always universal. Family is universal. And I think that this series will ultimately transport you and realize how interconnected we really all are.
I believe the series is absolutely captivating. The cinematography is so beautiful. Michael, you are the executive producer in the hit Apple TV series, The Morning Show, and the EVP of HBO programming, developing shows like Westworld. Why did you decide to work on Pachinko?
Probably a similar experience to what you just discussed for yourself. When I read the book, I'm a child of immigrants as well. My father was born in Germany in 1935. He fled with his family in 1939 as the war began. He lived in Panama for 2 years and then came to New York with nothing. And by the early 60s, he was stationed in Seoul as a captain in the US Army. And so you grow up with these stories and they become normal, right, to you in a certain way, but you can't really experience or touch it or feel it. And when I read the book, you just had this immediacy of this story, both being blown away by Sunja and her family's saga, but also the deep personal resonance and realizing if it resonated this way with me or with you, it would resonate with so many other people around the world. And then I actually had visited Korea the year before, and Korean drama in particular was giant, it was hugely successful. So which Teresa and I were very plugged into. I don't know that anyone else particularly was, but we were. And so it seemed like there's a moment in time to do something fresh, to tell a story that's not been told, that ought to be told, something that would have unique resonance for Koreans, for Korean Americans, for Asian Americans, but for Americans writ large and for audiences around the world. And and we take on crazy challenges and that we think are meaningful. And this seemed like one worth doing. And we're so just grateful at how it turned out.
I will add that, 4 years ago when we put the project together with Sue, it was not an inevitability. This is right when Crazy Rich Asians was coming out, and it was a few years before Parasite. And to try to take out a project that's trilingual and it needs to have a predominantly Asian cast, that was actually a challenge. But we all had a belief in it, and Sue's pitch really had in it something that everyone could connect to. It's why we feel very strongly that once you see it, it is ultimately a series that is very universal.
This series is truly phenomenal. I love all of the different cultures, integrated into this film. How is working with, the all-star cast in this show?
It was incredible. We're so honored and lucky to have all of them. It really is a global cast from Korea, Japan, Canada, US, all over. And it's one of the rare series that is a bridge between Korea and North America. But we're so honored. Like Yoon Yeo-jung, who's an Oscar winner, she is not only known from her last film. My family and I have known and respected her work for decades, and Michael has too. And of course, we have Minho Lee, who is also stunning as Hansu. I thought he elevated even the character in the book. And so when he joined us, we were thrilled. And we have Jin Ha, we have Min Ha Kim, and frankly, 600 other Asian cast members. So it's a real epic.
Yeah, and the process to form the cast was complex, not just for the the multinational nature of it, but first and foremost, it needed to feel like a family over time, right? It's one thing if you tell the story in a linear fashion. By the time you get to older Sunja, all right, you've moved on a little bit. And here you were intercutting between generations, and so they need to feel like one piece, even though they never interact, right? And so it was a painstaking experience of auditioning and reading, all done virtually during COVID, and slowly putting these pieces together for this incredible tapestry that's completely immersive. And some of the actors like Jin Ha, who plays Solomon, everyone had to work on language issues. But he in particular had to be able to speak, to master Korean, Japanese, and English. Obviously, he speaks English and he spoke Korean and spoke some Japanese, but incredible the effort and
had some dialect. Some of our
yeah,
actors
and
also,
yes,
the Korean actors also had to speak in a specific time period, accent. It was very complex. So we're so grateful to our cast. But we had almost 20 historians who consulted on the series. We really we wanted to get it right. Although I do think my mom's gonna watch and say, you didn't totally get that right, but we did actually put a lot of effort into that.
Asian, families are never satisfied with everything,
Exactly.
but I absolutely loved it. Thank you guys so much again for your time. I'm so excited for everyone to watch Pachinko. This hit close to home. So thank you guys again for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate it.
Pachinko was truly an incredible series. Justin, you're an executive producer and director for the show. Can you talk about Pachinko, what it means, and the history behind it?
Yes, it's an incredibly emotional and also important show, exactly for what you're saying, because it is based in history. And what it means to me is just the history of my family and my specifically my grandmother and the stories she's told me, and putting us in that time, and in the shoes of someone, in the character of Sanja, following her journey through generations.
I loved one of my favorite parts about this series was the opening intro. It got me so excited every time to watch the show. And the show, like you said, was told in 3 different languages and has so much culture, history, romance, drama, highlights it all. Can you talk about the production behind the series?
Yes. Is there a more specific question in terms of production?
Just overall, I mean, the cinematography was so captivating. I was going to highlight, I heard one of the productions required 10 rain towers, 4 hours, and 74 tons of water. Can you speak on that a bit?
Yeah, I wanted specifically about the rain towers. I wanted this continuous shot where we're following this car, and then older Sanja steps out, and we follow her to the ocean. In order to do that, you have to have towers that go out to the beach and to the water. And I think that YJ Yunyajung wasn't very happy with me because it was very cold, and I think I kept her in the water too long. So I got a very nice phone call after we shot that day. But I love her. God bless her soul. Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly ambitious and hard shoot. It's 2 countries. We shot in Vancouver and literally all over Korea. We would shoot a scene in one city and then hop in a car and drive 4 hours to a different part of Korea. Also because it's a historic show, to get the look, we really had to travel all around South Korea, and but I think it was all worth it. I think the show is beautiful.
The show is absolutely beautiful. It's interesting that you said it's mostly filmed in Korea. I know a lot of the scenes took place in the local market. Can you talk about, the food and the costumes in Pachinko? I know that was like an integral part of the series as well.
I think the costumes were incredibly important because, we wanted to get the authenticity of the time periods right. But, at the same time, in terms of making the audience feel something and telling a story through colors, we talk quite a bit about, how we, over the generations in the show, we'd kind of tell a story with the color palette. In terms of the food, the specificity is also very important. And, specifically if we're talking about, like, say episode 4, how she's scooping the rice and what that means, how hard it was to have white rice at that time. It was reserved for people with a lot of money, and it was a symbolic and a gesture of a mother, and giving, it was very emotional, and giving her heart to her departing daughter, I thought was incredibly beautiful. So yeah, those kind of aspects were we thought a lot about them as we were telling the story.
I feel like this series hit very close to home for me as well. My family is from Vietnam, and as a lot of Asian cultures, you go through a lot of hardships and sacrifices. I want to talk about the all-star cast, especially the two lead roles. The Korean superstar Lee Min-ho and Min-ha were outstanding. Can you quickly speak about how it was working with the cast?
They were all incredible. We spent a lot of time talking about casting and specifically Minha. I felt like she had such this resilient, strong spirit, and you can feel so much just from her face and not necessarily even sometimes language is necessary. I think she's so great in that way, and Minho is obviously such a veteran in the Korean drama scene, and I thought it was incredibly exciting to see him do something different.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited for everyone to watch Pachinko. It's really incredible and amazing. And thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.